Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Boy, the audience is in store today. If you want a deep dive into the Vikings' problems in the trenches on offense, if you want left guard and right guard discussion for the next 40 minutes, you have come to the right place.
Football, yeah.
Center as well, I hope.
Well, center as well. Yeah, center as well. The punchline kind of flowed better by saying like left guard, right guard.
Yeah, but I mean, I got no time for punchlines. This is nothing but serious.
And Garrett Bradberry, you listen, 1 year left on the contract.
Yep.
They could save $3.5 million by cutting him. We did our blueprint. Real quick, by the way, great suggestions from the comment section, the emails off of the hour and 10-minute Vikings offseason blueprint episode. And the consensus was, let's put a spreadsheet up on the screen, Dane Moore NBA podcast style. I'm going to work on that today so that we can have like a YouTube visual of our cap ruminations, the free agents that we sign, and we have to write that down. High-end graphics that we use on Wednesday.
Yes.
We can build something
Google
similar
Sheets.
for the blueprint. So we'll put the graphics department to work. Today so we're gonna do two things today, and the first thing will lead into the second thing. Is this a hot take? Declan has a take. We will determine if it is hot. Presented by our friends at Standard Heating and Air, Dex.
Absolutely. It is definitely hot. I had Standard come out to check the take. They agreed it's very hot. So at Standard Heating, not only are they making sure those furnace and those HVAC systems are working appropriately, they also provide expert trading. So their technicians, not only are they, learning new tips of the trade, they will also be mentoring new technicians. So if you're looking for work, if you're looking for to get into a new line of work, Standard Heating is a place to be at, standardheating.com. Plus, their Smart Club maintenance plan. When it was negative 30 degrees last week and something happened with your furnace, well, you join the Smart Club maintenance plan, you get discounts off repairs, you get priority scheduling. Standardheating.com, powering this hot take and powering Purple Daily.
Okay.
Football.
So during the season, the Monday or the day after every Vikings game, we all deliver our hottest Vikings takes. And in the offseason, starting this offseason, every week we're going to ask, is this a hot take? Someone from the show is going to bring a take, and we will determine if it's hot. So, Dex, the floor is yours.
All right, here we go. I'm going to deliver this take and probably take a step back afterwards as well from potential blowback, but I'm ready for it. Here's my hot take. The Vikings need Trey Smith as bad as the Chiefs need Patrick Mahomes. That is my hottest take. They need this guard more than anything else in the entire league. They'll never be Super Bowl contenders as long as they keep patchworking the offensive line. Look at the state of the Vikings right now, okay? You have playmakers left and right in Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson. You have a great head coach in Kevin O'Connell. Your defensive coordinator is on track to be back here for year 3. You cannot afford to do more Band-Aid options at a position that you've neglected for years. Kwesi didn't accumulate all of this cap space to just continue to go down to the bargain bin looking for guards. In 2005, Judd can obviously speak on this very well as well, that the Vikings signed a guard by the name of Steve Hutchinson to a $49 million contract. Judd, I believe that was the highest paid offensive guard contract of all time at the time of the signing. It
2006, but yes, you're right.
2006.
They started tampering in 2005, though.
Poison pill. There's some logistics in there that I'm not going to even provide for Trey Smith because I'm not going to go down that path. But when you signed him to that huge deal, he was a second-team or first-team All-Pro from 2006 through 2009. The only problem was the Vikings didn't have the quarterback until they got Brett Favre, who has the magical year in 2009. They had kind of a buffoon head coach to a degree, at least one that was on the field. He did a good job at getting the trenches right. Everything else was kind of meh. So don't patchwork your offensive line, Kwesi. Go big game hunting. Go get Trey Smith, and the Vikings are Super Bowl contenders. Make it happen. That is my hottest take.
So, okay, is this the hot take, Judd, that the Vikings need Trey Smith like the Chiefs need Patrick Mahomes?
It's incredibly
hot. Spicy. It's a little spicy.
It's incredibly hot, which, I mean, congratulations. It meets or definitely surpasses the threshold for the exercise.
Thank you.
I can't wait till we clip that out of context for social media.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure I
I
agree with the comparison, but I agree with the point of they definitely need to, and it would be nice to get a guard who would solve your problems for multiple years. So I like your point. I think the take itself might have gone just a bridge too far by naming Patrick Mahomes as the guy of equal importance.
So if I could, I took a logic, like a verbal logic class in place of math as a freshman at the University of Minnesota. Yeah, like you have to take a math class, but there's this like math with words class that you can take instead. Like if this, then that, and it's great.
Yeah.
And so if I could use some, so Declan's basically saying the Vikings need Trey Smith. He said like the Chiefs need Patrick Mahomes. Well, the Chiefs need Patrick Mahomes for their dynasty. So essentially, if this, then that, if the Vikings get Trey Smith, they will then enter dynasty contention, not just Super Bowl contention, which is spicy. But yeah, well, we went through the exercise yesterday, and Declan, I could see, was very sad that we didn't sign Trey Smith. We can do another exercise where we do sign Trey Smith. He is the best guard in free agency. It would be nice if you fixed a 10-year revolving door of, and you thought that you did by putting a second-round pick on Ed Ingram, and unfortunately, he's probably going to be a cut here. But this is the conundrum. You've got 2 or 3 key internal guys that you are considering bringing back. This is the puzzle. Do you bring back Byron Murphy for $15+ million? Cam Bynum, is Harrison Smith going to retire? You also need defensive line help, and there's like 2 or 3 dudes who could. They're going to cost you $20 million in free agency. My question is, because I've been on the throw $20 million at a guard thing also. And I guess as we get closer to free agency, my question is, are we letting 10 years of revolving door guard play lead us, if we were running the Vikings, into a mistake, which is throwing $20 million at Trey Smith versus $20 million at Asante Samuel Jr. or interior pass rushers from Detroit, Dallas that are potentially going to change your defensive trenches. Should we be including the last 10 years in our evaluation of how they should allocate a big chunk of their free agency money is my question.
I think we definitely should. And look, I mean, they have also consistently proven from much of the Spielman GM era to Kwesi now that they have not done a sufficient job of finding guys. I mean,
developing. I mean,
yeah,
this is like a multi-pronged
Ingram's the guy,
thing.
right? Like to your point, 2nd round pick, like that is a high draft pick on a guard. And if you go through and look at some of these guards and centers and their draft position, the Vikings have made this far too hard. There are a lot of guys who are like 4th or 5th round picks and turn out to be Pro Bowl players, outstanding players. I don't know that with McCarthy almost certainly starting next season, I don't think we're overreacting by saying, you know what, you have proven insufficient when it comes to your way of trying to solve this. So I think that you need, in the Vikings case, to spend a serious chunk of change. Now, Trey Smith is the biggest fish, and Trey Smith might be franchised. Like, we don't know this yet, but I don't think we're out of line for suggesting, and like Declan's saying too, that the Vikings need to find a way to solve at least one of those spots. Because the real shame here is, unlike 5 years ago, we're not talking about the entire line being a problem. The tackles are great.
Yeah.
Like
Brian O'Neill, by the way, Pro Bowl games announced yesterday.
Yes. So you've solved the tackles. So now the question is, can you just at least get one of the interior guys right? We're not saying 3 guys. You need three guys. That to me would be an overreaction because it's just simply not going to be realistic. But I think saying you need to spend on at least one guy to do what Steve Hutchinson helped you do in 2006 is a very reasonable ask, especially because of your quarterback and, as we're going to talk about, the run game.
Well, they need, and this will kind of morph into a state of the offensive line discussion. I spent the morning going through, there's like 3 main platforms that do a great job trying to measure offensive line play. There's PFF, which is more of a scouting approach, ESPN, which has like team pass block and run block win rates, and then Pro Football Reference, which does like some pressure rates and everything. So I'm going to blow your minds with a couple of these nuggets that I think we know how bad it is sometimes, especially in the run blocking or the run game. But there's a couple, when you compare the Vikings to some of the best teams in the NFL running the football, it's kind of crazy. But if you're going in, I agree with you. You don't need 5 first or second team all-pro guys. That would be great if you had the 1980s Washington Redskins or
Hogs. Get those Hogs back.
The Hogs. Joe Jacoby, right? I think that was one of the guys' names.
Snot coming out constantly.
Yep.
Blood just like, where are they bleeding from? I don't know.
Who cares?
Blood on their arm.
Block.
But it's a cliche, but it's kind of you're looking to avoid the weak link more than anything else. And like Ed Ingram has been a weak link. Bradberry at times has been a weak link. So Christian Darrisaw is staying. Brian O'Neill is staying. Bradberry is under contract for another year. He's serviceable. He's a good run blocker. He goes through spurts where, as a pass protector, it's not great. Mm-hmm. You could do a lot worse than current version Bradberry at center. It's also a really light free agency class, no pun intended, with the centers. So he's probably, like, you could save $3.5 million, but you'd also have to find a new starting center for J.J. McCarthy. So it's likely that they bring him back and then 7th-round pick Michael Juergen steps in. Something else, I think it was Kevin Seifert that reported this. If not, apologies for whoever did. Walter Rouse, the 6th-round tackle out of Oklahoma,
it was
that they could move him to guard. Did he say that on Purple Access?
He did, yes.
Last week?
Breaking news.
So, I mean, that's an option. So you're Darrisaw, O'Neill, Bradberry, Blake Brandel as a swing guy, Walter Rouse and Michael Juergens. That's 6. You usually carry like 8 in your main rotation. So you're probably you're going to cut Ed Ingram almost certainly to save $3 million. So you're probably looking for 2 guys. 1 starter, maybe 1 fringe starter somewhere in there, right?
Mm-hmm. And and the Rouse thing, look, I'm all for, I'm not trying to crap on being creative here, but again, this does go back to, at least in one of those guard spots, just solve it. Just find a way to solve it. Like, if Brandel comes back and starts with Darrisaw back, he clearly, I mean, that lifted Blake as well. But like that right guard spot, for instance, is just sitting there, just waiting for somebody to come in. I mean, unfortunately, through his lack of development and the Vikings either didn't get the pick right or didn't help him, Ingram's a bust. He's probably gone. I think that Reisner is not back. And so, like, to me, it's the right guard that is just sitting there in a sweet spot of replace him. And then if that guy goes to left guard and you get creative, that's fine too. But the point is, that's the thing that I think is the overwhelming area of need of you can solve one of these. And everything that you've done previously, quite frankly, has not worked.
And by the way, I'd rather be in the Vikings case of it is very difficult to draft and develop 2 stud tackles on your outside. Like, they have Darrisaw and O'Neill, one of the best tandem tackles in the NFL. I'd rather be in this case where, all right, the tackles established, man. I mean, you got 2 absolute studs on the outside. Now can you fill it in on the in? I'd rather have it that way than work my way inside. Now, can you find 1 good tackle? Because the other guys, both these guys are sieves. Man, you're fortunate to have 2 really good ones. Now can you patchwork the inside of it?
And in terms of available options to fix right guard, let's start there because right guard has been, and left, but you got Blake Brandel. If you need, you can run him back out there. There are like at least 6 very viable right guard free agent options, ranging from Trey Smith, who's going to cost you probably $21 million a year, all the way down to the bin of veterans that we talked about yesterday that PFF projects to be more like $6 or $7 million 1-year contracts. That doesn't fix it long term, but at least going into next year off a 14-win season with a first-year starting quarterback, it gives you a minute, and maybe then Walter Rouse or Michael Juergens spends that year. But you've got, so in free agency, and there's some other dudes too, but like Trey Smith, Mekhi Becton, 25 and a half years old, former busted left tackle that the Eagles brought in on a flyer to play right guard. Great run blocker, a little bit of suspect in the pass protection game. But then Will Fries, who did break his leg with the Colts last year, but he's 27 years old, and when he's out there, he is a well above average starting right guard. So those are guys that are just like, those are like 25, 26, 27-year-olds that would sign multi-year deals. And then you've got the one-year contract bin of Brandon Scherf is a 10-year right guard in the NFL who's been really, really good. 33 years old. Kevin Zeitler, who, by the way, is a Waukesha, Wisconsin guy who has family in the Midwest. He's been willing to move around in his career. Spent last year with the Lions, after being with the Ravens, after being with the Giants and the Bengals. 35, so definitely year to year on a guy like that. Zach Martin, who at one point was one of the best offensive linemen in the league, right guard for Dallas. He spent his entire career in Dallas, 34 years old. So there are solutions. You should absolutely be throwing money at the problem. The question is, do you throw $7 million for 1 year, or do you throw $100 million for 4 years at the problem? But I will say this, like, here's my hottest take, I guess. If they get this fixed, especially in the run game, and their interior offensive line goes up a notch or two, and they can draft an explosive running back that can break tackles and take what could be an 8-yard gain and turn it into a 50-yard gain once in a while, they go from being a fun story who overachieved and won 14 games to be, and whether they win 14 games again is kind of irrelevant. They will be an actual Super Bowl contender. If, like, this is the thing, if they get fixed, they will be an actual Super Bowl contender in the next 3 years.
I think you throw a phenomenal offer at Trey Smith. Will Fries, to me, I don't know. I mean, to your point, Phil, he got hurt in week 5. He is a former, and this again shows how you can find guys, 7th round pick.
Yeah.
Like this is how interior guys.
This is what's supposed to happen. Walter Rouse is supposed to be your starting left.
Exactly
guard.
right. But he's
Trey
24.
Smith, a 6th round pick too.
Yeah.
I think he was a 6. So like,
yes.
there he is.
He fell because the one thing about him was he had blood clots in his lungs.
Right. Yeah.
And so that actually dragged his draft stock down. But
Zeitler was a 1st round pick, but yeah.
But the question on Fries is, what's his price point? What's he worth? Because if he is going to come back and be fantastic, I'm not saying I certainly wouldn't pay him Trey Smith money. I certainly would pay him. But yeah, if you don't get one of those, top guys there, then I think you probably might just have to go the Brandon Scherf Zeitler route.
Yeah. So
it'd still be an improvement.
By the way, PFF projects Will Fries 4 years, $57 million, so like $14 million a year, $30 million guaranteed. So basically 2 years guaranteed.
Okay.
And I will say he only played 268 snaps last year. He did have an 86.9 PFF grade, which was near top of the league. The previous 2 seasons, he ranked 50th out of 77 guards in 2022 and 32nd out of 79 guards in 2023. So you're kind of banking on coming back from an injury, smaller sample size. But he is 26, turning 27 years old. So he does fit. You'd bring him in in the prime of his career. I have a few nuggets that I think are going to make your heads explode, maybe in good and bad ways, because we're getting to the root of the problem here.
Mostly bad.
We've focused a lot on offensive line in these conversations, but I'll tell you, like, running back is every bit as much of a culprit as you start to dig on the state of the Vikings trenches and the running game. So we'll dive into that. But hey, Valentine's Day is coming up, Judd. Just around the corner, a couple weeks away.
Mm-hmm. So I did the math. 18 days. And so you guys out there are saying, Sports Dad, it's 18 days. I got plenty of time. But you know what? Don't procrastinate. 18 days turns into 8, turns into 4. And the clock is ticking. I want you to get ahead of the game now by ordering from my friends at Petal Floral Boutique in Edina. Get the purple daily special, in fact, from a store that loves the show. I was there a couple of days ago. As you can see, the selections are plentiful. The Valentine's Day collection includes premium roses and mixed bouquets as well. You can also add, guys, as you just saw right there, delicious chocolates or romantic candles. I'm going to tell you right now, that is a winner. The additions are big. Orders can be placed online at thepedal.com or by calling 612-356-2890. Delivery available, by the way, in the West Metro. Cutoff for the pre-orders and the 10% Purple Daily Special is February 9th. The code to get 10% off is this simple purple. Mention code word purple at checkout to receive the Purple Daily 10% Valentine's Day Special located at 50th and France. This is a store that loves two things, Valentine's Day and Purple Daily. So support those, please, that support us. We appreciate it. Again, that's Petal Floral Boutique. 18 days is nothing. It'll be gone in the blink of an eye.
A black stack. You know, why don't you do this too? Go get those flowers from Petal, and then take your significant other to Black Stack's Tap Room, the second largest tap room in the state of Minnesota, where you can tap into their extensive beer selection and also hard seltzer cocktails, boozy slushies. Maybe watch a rom-com. I don't know. I'm assuming they might have a rom-com on the 190-inch big screen. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Maybe some Harry Met
Hitch.
Sally.
Oh, Harry Met Sally.
Some Hitch. Maybe some Hitch, yeah.
Love Harry Met Sally's the best.
Can find Black Stag beer all over the state of Minnesota and during the season inside U.S. Bank Stadium for Vikings games and expanded distribution into Wisconsin, Nebraska, and South Dakota. BlackStackBrewing.com to find out more. And a shout out to a North American banking company, 6 locations across the Twin Cities. They are a Minnesota bank, Maple Grove, Roseville, Shoreview, Hastings, Woodbury, and 50th in France. I've gotten to know the folks at North American Banking Company kind of on the heels of a really bad experience with a big brand national bank that I will not throw under the bus here. But ultimately, I was literally I want to talk to a human. Can I talk to someone, maybe someone that I even know, someone that I trust? And that's what North American Banking Company provides. Friendly, knowledgeable staff. They take the time to learn about you and what are you. Maybe you're just looking for a better savings and checking account situation. Maybe you're looking for something bigger, like financing a car or a house, a renovation, or setting up a new business. North American Banking Company since 1998. nabankco.com/Mackey to learn more. That's nabankco.com/Mackey. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Okay, boys. State of the Vikings offensive line and running game continues here. So where does the Vikings offensive line and then the other extensions of the offensive line into the run game, where does it rank among some of the top contenders in the league? So team pass protection. So they have like PFF, ESPN have their different ways of doing this. There's discrepancy about the Vikings pass protection unit. So PFF graded them 18th as a pass protection unit, but ESPN's pass block win rate had them second because ESPN's pass block win rate basically says if you won for 2.5 seconds, if you did your job for 2.5 seconds, you get a win on that rep.
And Sam said, hold on a second. I need 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi.
And Sam's average time to throw was like 3.2 or something.
Yes.
So you have PFF is saying, all right, we're not like drawing a hard line at 2.5 seconds here. There's a lot that goes into this. There's longer developing routes that you do have to hold up for longer. I think ESPN is maybe simplifying it by saying, hey, after 2.5 seconds, guy, you're on your own. Scheme, quarterback, you're on your own.
That's awesome.
Pro Football Reference says the Vikings gave up the 5th most pressures in terms of pressure percentage. But how much of that is, okay, quarterback is playing patty cake for a half hour and there's a pressure. Okay, well, Dalton Reisner got beat on that play. Well, yeah, but did Darnold not get through his progressions fast enough?
Right.
The other guys are paid millions of dollars to try and disrupt too. So there's some gray area there with how the PFFs, the ESPNs, and the Pro Football References grade the Vikings pass protection.
And it's probably only fair to point out the loss of Darisaw definitely impacted that.
Yes.
Like there's no question. The entire left side of the line went down. Now the Robinson pickup is still a great move. if you had moved Brandel to left tackle and now you got to move Reisner to left guard and now you got to move or leave Ingram at right guard, that's probably a disaster. So Kwesi deserves a lot of credit, but we probably haven't talked enough about just what the loss of Darisaw did because I'm willing to bet that entire statistical breakdown is different pre-Darisaw being hurt.
Isn't that kind of crazy? Let's dig on that for a second. The Vikings lost not even halfway through the season. One of the best players in the NFL. In terms of position importance, he's one of the 3 to 5 best left tackles in the NFL. There's been some stretches where you could say he's like the second best, maybe Trent Williams, and then maybe he's universally one of the best players at one of the most important positions. And he goes out after a month and a half or 2 months. And even those of us who follow the team every single week and the diehard fans and media kind of just dismissed it from the commentary surrounding the team, right? We're guilty of that. We went weeks without even talking about the fact that, hey, not to use excuses, but this team won 14 games despite one of the best players in the league going out with an injury.
Right, and that's good and bad because the good thing is that they went and immediately addressed it too, and so it didn't become a disaster. Yeah. But to your point, you went from a guy who's one of the best at what he does in arguably the second most important position on offense for a right-handed quarterback to a guy who was okay, not great. But yeah, I just think the entire exercise on pass protection is probably directly impacted in a pretty significant way by that loss.
Yeah. In terms of team run block rankings, this is where the conversation starts to get even more interesting because you would think oh my gosh, the Vikings, they had the third fewest rushing touchdowns. They don't even trust themselves to run the ball at all inside the 5-yard line. So offensive line must just be a total train wreck. Well, PFF graded the Vikings run blocking 16th, so not great, but not 28th. And ESPN's run block win rate was 15th. So again, certainly not the Eagles or the Ravens. But when I see that, I think, well, if you have kind of an average run blocking offensive line and tight ends, you should probably have more than 9 rushing touchdowns in 4.5 months. Now, when we'll get to the running back portion, how does the Vikings rankings in some of these compare to other teams in the NFL? Let's start with the Broncos, because the Broncos brought in Bo Nix, a rookie quarterback. Oh, how is he going to do? I don't know. People are kind of not quite sure about Bo Nix. The Broncos were number 1 in ESPN's pass block and run block win rates. So you're putting a young quarterback. You want, how did Bo Nix? Man, he kind of surprised some people by having such a great year. Well, here's Sean Payton. I know Vikings fans hate him, but he's one of the great offensive minds of the last 25 years. And according to ESPN, the best offensive line in the entire NFL. Now, PFF has a couple different thoughts on that, but that's a great recipe for giving a first-year starting quarterback a chance to throw for 4,000 yards and make the playoffs and win double-digit games, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the thing is, if you're building an offense, it can't be just skill guys, which the Vikings have improved at. Like they do have, to go back, 2 really good tackles. But yeah, if you are going to, I think the obvious parallel there is, if you're going to install J.J. McCarthy as your starting quarterback next season, you better give him not just enough time, but enough confidence, right? To me, that's the most important thing is, how much confidence do you have that your line can do the job? And where this whole thing has changed too, Phil, really in the last probably 10 years to 15 years, is when we covered the Vikings together back in the day, how many teams defensively had a real push inside? They could stop the run and had big nose tackles and a 3-tech who might be good, but how many of them did we sit there in the old dome press box and watch and say, oh my God, that guy just broke through the line like that?
Yeah, there weren't many. Well, there's only been one Aaron Donald ever, but
yeah,
Aaron Donald,
but
Chris
it happened
Jones.
It happened occasionally, but not consistently. Yeah. Now teams have that consistently, and that's where your center and guard, where I think the payment structure for those guys has changed as well, because now it's gone from hold your block to you've got to be really good.
Yes, and the evolution, like you said, the evolution of the interior defensive lines, it almost requires offensive tackle skills.
Yes.
Because they can put a guard on an island now with an overload front over here, and there's different things they can do. But I just found the Broncos thing I found fascinating, because that is a recipe. And if you ask yourself, are the Vikings fully set up right now with their interior offensive line? Are they fully set up to give J.J. McCarthy the best possible chance? And it's not a disaster. And ESPN would say, actually, their pass protection was way better than you thought. It's more of a quarterback problem, those pressures. But just a few others. So the Eagles, who are going to the Super Bowl again, they are top 10 in every team run and pass block metric, PFF to ESPN. The Lions, predictably, are second in PFF run blocking, and then top half of the league in all the other categories, ESPN, PFF. The Ravens are top 3 in ESPN's pass block and run block win rates. They also have the best running quarterback of all time and one of the 8 best running backs of all time. And the Commanders, well, how'd the Commanders make such a run? Jaden Daniels, yes. And they were second in ESPN's run block win rate. Mm-hmm. So they're able to, not just with Jaden Daniels running around, they're able to open up for their other running backs too. So I think we already know this anecdotally, but you look at some of the best teams and teams that have unlocked young quarterbacks, mm-hmm. there's a blueprint here. This is where I'm going to blow your mind. Yards before contact. So when I hear yards before contact, so there's yards after contact, which is, all right, your running back got hit. What can he do after getting hit? I think yards after contact is more of a running back stat.
Yeah.
Yards before contact is more of a scheme, offensive line push stat. Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Like when you watch the Eagles, just Mekhi Becton just moves a guy 5 yards backwards and creates a hole, and there's Saquon before contact is already 5 yards down the field.
Yep.
The Ravens are first in yards before contact. The Eagles are second. Not shocker. Those are two teams that had a 1,900-yard running back and a 2,000-yard running back. The Commanders, Lions, and Bills also all in the top 10 for yards before contact. The Vikings, 23rd in yards before contact. But here's the stat. The Eagles had 1,000 more yards before contact than the Vikings did this year. Mm-hmm. I'll say that again. Mm-hmm. The Eagles had 1,000 more yards before contact than the Vikings did in 2024.
As crazy as that sounds, I want you to think. I want you to sort through your mental images of the 2024 season in watching the Vikings every game, and then when you've dipped in and watched Philly play, okay? Shockingly, I am not nearly as surprised as I should be. Think about how many times did Aaron Jones get the ball and absolutely run unimpeded?
Yeah.
He didn't really.
Not very often.
I mean, he got through some tackles, and so the contact was not always going to bring him down. But to your point about Becton, go back to that game, and Mekhi, literally, they do some type of switch, some type of game, and he literally just moves the guy, and Saquon's got like a car wash to go into, and then he comes out of the car wash. So the sad thing is, I should be absolutely floored. Mentally, I'm not, because I remember all the times that I would see a Vikings back get at least grabbed onto or contacted fairly quickly after he took the ball.
Well, and we'll get to the after contact stuff too, because there's a story to be told there, because the Eagles have both an incredible run blocking offensive line and one of the, as we're finding out, post Giants career, one of the great explosive running backs of our era. And how many times have you seen offensive line creates a massive hole, allowing Saquon to get to the second level, but then Saquon, maybe there is a stat for this. Running backs taking a gain that should be like a 10 or 15 yard chunk gain. Thank you, offensive line, and housing it 50 yards. Saquon is the king at that. Where that should be like a 15-yard gash.
The first play.
Yeah, it's
on Sunday.
And he jukes around two secondary guys and goes. Mm-hmm. But and just to put this even further into context, the Eagles had 2,011 yards rushing before contact this year.
Wow.
The Vikings had 1,050 yards before contact on the ground. That's pretty wild. So there's a lot of credit to Saquon, obviously, for breaking these things, but that is the offensive line stat. You're wondering, how did the Eagles get this far on the Vikings? Well, that right there is the biggest part.
And I think too, with Saquon as a Giant was fantastic. Like you could see in watching him, he was special at a position that has a lot of good players, probably not great. Saquon's skill set is great, but the thing that the Eagles did here too is it's the perfect marriage. Like if you put Saquon back with the Giants this season, I think he's still very good. Do I think he's this guy? No. Because the marriage, and like that's what we're talking about here. The fundamental marriage of those five big guys up front with the running back who understands and can, that's the perfection. That's the perfection. And that's what you're trying to reach. And that's where I think for the Vikings, in some ways, it's been a struggle. But I mean, this does go to the heart of the matter, which is if those three guys interior can create holes and you've got the right back, you're cooking with gas.
Okay, yards after contact. We'll give you guys a couple more here. And some of this is probably frustrating to hear if you're a Vikings fan because it illustrates that not all 14-win teams are equal. Some of this is a credit, the gap between the Vikings and some of these other teams that even had like fewer wins than the Ravens case. That they actually, the Vikings were like they weren't the 6.5 win team that Vegas thought preseason, but they were probably like a 10 or like an 11 win team that were coached up and had some big moments in the passing game to win 14. Maybe the schedule was a little lighter in some spots, but yards after contact, more of a running back stat. Number 1, Ravens. Well, yeah, okay. Contact is made. Well, it's Lamar bouncing off someone.
Derrick Henry.
Or Derrick Henry stiff arming. Yeah, right. Derrick Henry, who literally looks like a right tackle in the backfield. Yep. So that's not surprising. Number 2, yards after contact, Tampa Bay with Bucky Irving, former Gopher running back Bucky Irving.
One of the most remarkable stories of the season, as far as I'm concerned.
He's really good.
Did you watch that guy here and think surefire?
I thought he's a really good running back, and I'm sad that he's going to Oregon.
Yeah, but I never thought to myself, you know what? That guy is not just going to play on Sundays, but be really damn good.
Yeah, and and he averaged like 5.5 yards a carry, and he's here to stay. Number 3, Green Bay Packers yards after contact.
Well, there you go.
With Josh Jacobs.
That's why you move on. Yep.
Well, the Vikings were 20th in yards after contact. So Packers validated. We like Aaron Jones. He can't stay healthy, and quite frankly, we're just looking for someone that can break some more tackles. Well, Josh Jacobs is that guy. The Cardinals are 4th in yards after contact with James Conner, who's a wrecking ball, and Kyler Murray, who's slippery and elusive, that you make contact, he might just sort of, as Chris Berman would say, whoop, 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 high step out of the grasp. We have Vikings 20th in yards after contact. And then broken tackles is my last one for you. Broken tackles on running plays. So if Justin Jefferson doesn't count here. Ravens, Packers, Lions, all at the top of the list for broken tackles in the running game. Well, yeah, Jameer. Think about how many times just in the Vikings games against the Lions, Jameer Gibbs, there's 3 defenders that grab a leg or grab part of the waist, and he just accelerates like he was untouched. Vikings were 27th in the NFL in broken tackles. In fact, while the top teams had about 60 broken tackles on the season on run plays alone, the Vikings had just 18 broken tackles on rushes this season, basically 1 per game. So if you look at the top teams like the Ravens and the Packers, they're breaking what, 3.5 times as many tackles per game on running plays.
Yep.
Well, that could be that could be a touchdown. That could be a red zone touch. That could be for sure an extra first
Red
down.
zone touchdown. Yes, I agree with you completely.
Yeah, because you're probably going to have to break a tackle to score a touchdown in the red zone once in a while.
Yes.
So I know that's a lot of information, but I think it illustrates not just offensive line before contact, but also running back, how important it is for the Vikings to spend the next 3 months really focusing on if you want to be the Ravens, you want to be, the Bills don't show up in some of these as much, but the Bills have a really good running game. You want to be the Eagles, you want to be the Lions.
Can break tackles.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
He's a huge human being. So I think the thing too is Aaron Jones. We now see exactly what the Packers saw, which is he doesn't like he didn't miss a game, but he was always hurt. But more importantly, he's hurt a lot because, and I didn't know this until he got here, he is a small human being. Like he's not going to break tackles. That's not his style and his size. He can scatter a bit and he might be a good backup. But yeah, the Vikings and this, I hate to continue to pound this drum because it's a dead horse. But you guys, this is where the 22 draft is biting you in the ass again. Ingram at right guard should have worked, and he should actually be a borderline Pro Bowl player, if not one, right?
Ty Chandler would have been nice too.
And Ty Chandler. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Bigger, explosive, but just.
Yep. Ty Chandler was, but those two guys right there, like that's your run game. That's a huge part of it. Yep. And they both aren't starters. There's a very good chance, I think, that both might be gone. And this is where you have to fill in. I will say this. With the good news is, if the Vikings can get it right this time, the depth of this draft at the running back position is going to lend itself to fixing that problem, which again goes back to what we talked about at the outset of this show, which is this is why you address at least one of the guard needs with a pretty expensive payday.
Yeah. Yeah, there's plenty, like we said earlier in the episode and yesterday, if you missed the Blueprint episode, there's like a grocery store section devoted to right guards in free agency. And it's like walking into a liquor store. Do you want the top shelf? Do you want the $120 bottle of red up there? That's Trey Smith.
Up there. Don't drop it.
But there's also down here, there's the Trader Joe's special, Kevin Zeitler, 35. He's aged 35 years old. So you got to get someone from that section of right. And it's a lot of right guards. It's like 6 right guards basically that are sitting there in free agency for you.
I will say this because I think it's an important fact too, is, a year ago in his first 2 years, and especially in 23, there's no question Kevin O'Connell offensively did not run the ball enough. I think the Vikings were 30th in 2023. Last year, they ran the ball way more. So this is not a problem of not calling runs. Like
there might be some scheme things to be tweaked.
Of course.
There's more creativity.
But he sort of got the fact that you have to run. But now, and the biggest thing too, because it's just like a wart every time it happens, is the red zone inefficiencies are driven completely by the run game. Yep. Like it's not about passing. It's not about, the fact is when you can't score in the red zone by bullying your way into the end zone, you're not going to win a Super Bowl. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Win a playoff game, as we saw.
The Eagles just scored 7 rushing touchdowns in the conference championship game. The Vikings had 9 all year. The Cowboys had 6.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's also something to be said for just the mental warfare of football. Well, they're moving the ball on the ground against someone.
That's the one thing. I don't think that this has been discussed enough fundamentally about the 2024 Vikings. And Phil, we saw this in training camp, and they came out to start the season this way. They were going to punch back. And O'Connell, by today's standards, had a tougher camp. It's not 2-a-days, you can't. But he had a tougher camp. And the Vikings, I thought, San Francisco, they punched them. Houston, they punched them. Those are tough teams. And it felt like that waned. And I loved, that's what they were doing.
Darisaw.
Yeah.
Darisaw.
But what they were doing overall as a team, that's the playoffs. That they will never advance in the playoffs until they can do that. But I also think to our points here, there's just some areas where you're going to have to upgrade to maintain that. Because, it's one thing for the run game to work a little bit and Aaron Jones to come out punching in week 2, right? Unfortunately, he can't keep it up in week 16.
Yeah. Yep. So this will be a focal point of the next 2 or 3 months for the Vikings free agency and draft, and we'll be all over it here. We've already gone full head first into the offseason pool here. Purple Daily. By the way, 2 notes. So tomorrow, write that down. Predictions as always on Wednesday. Also today on the Purple Daily YouTube and podcast feeds, we are launching a new weekly. So we've kind of for the last couple of years we've been kicking around. We love football. We talk Vikings, obviously, 365 days a year here, and we sprinkle in some NFL stuff. But, yeah, we sit there all weekend and watch playoff football, and we watch Red Zone Channel, and we'd like to talk NFL football. So we're going to debut today a new weekly show on Purple Daily called Purple Daily NFL Takes. And it's going to be the 3 of us literally just dishing NFL takes that we've been storing up, and mostly just like on our text thread, we can deliver NFL takes, but we're going to create some space. So check it out. Let us know what you think. And we appreciate you guys. Purple Daily, daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. Got to find some guards to make that happen.